Hello and welcome to the Being and Becoming podcast. Together, we are being honest in conversations about thoughts we're having and books we're reading in the hopes of becoming better, more able versions of our current selves. My name is Logan Howard. And today I'm joined by my good friend, Phillip Lunt. Phil, thanks for coming on.
Hey Logan, good to see you again. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be back.
For the listeners, Phil was a guest on a couple months ago back in May, I believe, but we had such a good conversation. I thought, might as well get him back on here. And we're already in August, which is crazy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just also wanted to quickly point out that I'd gotten away from saying the mission statement at the beginning of the episode. And Phil, I think it was after we had recorded last time, but I brought up, hey, that might be good, especially for listeners that are tuning in for the first time or kind of, hopping around and to episodes just to have that consistency. And so I thought about what you'd said and I've been doing it ever since our last conversation. So I wanted to give you a shout out for that and a little thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it resonated. Yeah, it came from that book that we talked about how people, people's memories, right? And how we the familiarity that it can build. So it was I'm glad to yeah, that you're doing it because I also like the mission statement, I guess, too. So, I think it's good. The repetition is good for people. They're like, it's this podcast, right? I know what I'm
Yeah.
listening to.
Yeah, definitely. That's the hope, right? Yeah, it's that
Mhm.
it's identifiable and that there
Mhm.
is, even though like you and I don't have a show flow right now, but we do have a vision and an aim that we're working
Yeah.
towards, which is being honest in our conversation and honest about our thoughts. Obviously, to the extent that is appropriate to sharing with the general audience, because we don't want to just say all of our thoughts
All
and
of it.
stuff that's
Yeah.
going on. But to the conversations we're talking about, we at least want to be honest about where we stand with the thoughts and ask good
Uh-huh.
questions and hopefully have a good dialogue through that. So,
That's
on
right.
that note, I'll kind of kick us off into our first topic, which I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I had alluded to this a little bit before our conversation on the call, but the idea of blue zones, Patrick had brought this up. I want to say a month ago, maybe now, on an episode, and I'd recommend anyone who's listening to check that out as well. But essentially, the concept that he he had or that he challenged us with was, because I won't explain the whole concept of the blue zone, what it means, but I'm just going to
Mhm.
explain the context of kind of where we left the conversation, which was, okay, we can't control all the things around us, but we can control our attitude. We can start aiming at belonging to it, having a sense of community in where we live, like having a sense of
Mhm.
belonging. We can control our diet and exercise
Mhm.
and some of those other factors that are going to give us good quality of life. And the last component, I think, was stress. Obviously, there are going to be stresses we cannot control, but there are going to be things within our control. Um,
Yep.
and I had heard this great quote I'm going to borrow from someone this week at a conference that I attended. But he had said, if it's not going to make you angry in 3 days, you should probably just let go of it today. And that'll
It's
also
great.
kind of help you control what you should be angry or stressed, kind of
Mhm.
worrying about, rather. Not that you should be worrying, actually, but if you're going to be, having your thoughts consumed by something, let it be the thing that's going to um, be the most important, or that's
Mhm.
going to, yeah, concern your next 3 days as opposed to something
Yeah.
that could be dropped in 30 minutes or less. So
Mhm.
anyhow, so that's kind of where my mind has been. And
Sure.
I'm happy to report that I'm trying to, pursue that. That is my aim currently, is to try to eat better, exercise more, um, develop community, and then manage
Clean
kind of
your room.
stress. Clean my room. Yeah, exactly. To borrow a Jordan Peterson phrase. Exactly. And so I was at this conference this week, which also I think just kind of helped affirm or reaffirm some of those values. And it was a leadership training through my company, and it was offered to like a wide variety of employees, which I thought was
Mhm.
really cool. In my experience, it seems as if that sort of training would only be offered to a set number of people, or maybe only
Yeah.
leaders or something like that nature. But it was
Okay.
offered to, like kind of like the wider like a wider group of employees and stuff. And yeah, it was just like a really good takeaway. They did a lot of like the Ziglar, if you've heard of Zig Ziglar.
I have. I don't know his principles, but
Okay.
I've definitely heard of that name before.
It's a lot of the like self-help. Like I
Okay.
think a lot of, but I think he was one of kind of the pioneers in like the self-help
Okay.
like concepts and things of that nature. But yeah, no, it's
How
just
can you forget a name like Zig Ziglar? I mean,
yeah, it's a great name. Great
it
name.
is. Personal brand is on point.
Yeah.
Zig.
Yeah. So they taught us some of those. It was geared more professionally, but there was also obviously some personal application. And yeah, we did a lot of cool like self-assessments, but then we kind of got into groups and would discuss things or whatnot. And yeah, it was a really good takeaway. And I was very impressed by the whole leadership training that the company provided. So yeah, I was just kind of like riding a high from that as well. And I talked to a couple people afterwards that I didn't know this really, but they work with like authors that want to get published. So I was telling them about my book idea, which unfortunately it's still new or like small, so I don't want to get into it a lot on the podcast yet. But it was cool to just get feedback or like encouragement even from people that are kind of like have published books and stuff like that. And I think I've found that they were so generous with their time, and I think that is just, it's hopeful too. It's tough to find other creative people, and when you do, it's never like, it's not like puff out your chest, I'm better than you, that kind of thing. They're like, oh, they're listening to my ideas, they're telling me their input. We're talking about authors that we like. And so it was like a really just great, it lit me on fire. Obviously I haven't sat down to write anything yet. But I want to start writing, because I feel like even though they're not going to check on me, I feel like I have a little bit of accountability now too, of like, I've spoken this idea out into the ether. Someone knows about it. I want to follow through on it. So yeah, that's kind of where my mind's been at, but I'd love to turn it over to you to get some thoughts. Or
so can you help me? Sorry, because I missed this. I guess a couple of things. First of all, I should have done more homework before this podcast, because I did not listen to the Blue. And this is I told you this before, but I did not listen to the Blue Zones podcast. So I'll be, I guess, I'll act as the uninformed listener who's trying to figure out what this whole thing is, because I think I understand it. But if I play it back to you, it sounds like the factors at play are food, exercise, stress, community. Did I miss anything there?
Yeah, no, I think that those were some of the things that we took away from it that were within our control. Yeah. The other thing is like, what's in your control? Yeah.
What are the things that weren't in your control? Weather or something? Or
climate. Yeah, like physical location.
Okay. Anything else that made up a blue zone?
I think there were some other things about like specific lifestyle sort of things that also you like. I think there's
like cultural,
cultural, but also maybe some luxury thing, like obviously like affluency, maybe, I think. And that's how I remember it. I don't know if that's necessarily like a factor, but that was my impression. There was some kind of like luxury component to it as well, which obviously we can't control, but we were trying to focus like what is within our control.
Got it.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay. Cool. So that, and then the conference that you went to ties into that, because it was encouraging you to push into what you feel like is stress relieving hobbies. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
Yeah, I think it's so I'm glad you asked this, because this is a great point to clarify. I think there's an overlap between these blue zones and then what this conference was talking about. And I think it's kind of like that self-actualization, or that meaning. Yep. Well, I think meaning could just be so it's not a clear overlap in that, like, I don't think the things from the conference necessarily translate to the blue zone directly. Maybe some of that stuff is better helping me manage stress or reduce
Sure.
stress or something like that, or I don't know, something of that nature. But I think the overall point was like I'm aiming in the same direction. It's like the vision of
Yeah.
like
Okay.
this, yeah, like
It feels like you're aiming for something high or something good, and
yeah, like a meaningful fulfillment. And
yeah.
I think the leadership like academy was more so um yeah, like the like exercising some of the creativity,
Hmm.
focusing on like purpose and vision. Um, but then yeah, I think it like it kind of coincides with some of the Blue
Yeah.
Zone
Yeah.
stuff. So it's just in my mind it was giving a fuller picture. But thank you for asking that, because I think I did not clarify that on the when I was originally
No, it's
explaining it. Yeah.
well. I mean, no, and the explanation helps because it's. I mean, that is a lot of times what we're doing is looking for different ways to. At least I feel like in when I'm acting out the way I want to be, it's I'm looking for different ways to characterize or flesh out what it means to step towards, and as a Christian, step towards holiness or righteousness and righteous living. But that is parameterized in so many different ways that you have the goal, but then like there's
Yeah.
so many different ways to step towards it. And so if you have any sort of direction, whether it's that conference or this Blue Zones idea or whatever, that can help you practically take those steps in where you're at in your life, it's always helpful and like energizing, right? If I can see
Right.
the next step, I always feel energized, and not always, but tend to feel energized, and like again, if I'm able to make progress towards that somehow, it's helpful and exciting.
Yeah, and I think just the nice thing too, especially with talking with Pat about the Blue Zones, but then also
Mhm.
the Leadership Academy, another thing they had in common was that communal aspect.
There you
Like you're
go.
doing it with
Okay.
other people
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
like that first, the Blue Zone was just Patrick and I. Okay, but we're really accountable. It's just
Yeah.
one on
Yeah.
one. We've talked about this. We know this. We're gonna try to make these improvements in our
Mhm.
lives. Like he had such a great idea too, and I wish she was on here to share it or whatnot. But it was he wanted to just go around and knock on his neighbors' doors and like introduce himself in his apartment complex. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
that's a great idea for one, but for two, that's very intimidating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was honest with him. I was like, I don't know if I could do that if I was in your situation.
Mhm.
But I was like, but I also encourage you to try it, because
Yeah.
I was like, when I lived in apartments, there was one place where I knew all my neighbors and had good relations with them, just would kind of
Yeah.
see them and say hi. And really liked it. But then the next place I was at, I don't think I knew any of my neighbors, and I did not like that place as much. And
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe there's something connected with that.
Definitely.
And this is post college, because obviously when you're in college, I think that's a little bit different too, because you have
Mhm.
a lot of roommates, and it's just you might know of all your neighbors even without knowing them, if you're living on
Yeah.
campus and stuff. But anyhow, I'm digressing. But yeah,
One
no, I
time,
thought. Oh,
one
sorry.
time in college. No, I'm just gonna tell a story about college neighbors. I had a housemate, one of my good friends, Bryson, who he when we moved like off campus, we were off campus. He was like, "Yeah, we should introduce ourselves to the neighbors." So he made cookies but they're all college houses, so and like some of them were frat houses and everything. So I have no idea what these guys thought were in the cookies, but they were just normal cookies. And so we got some weird looks when we went around like, "Hey, we're your neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
here, have some baked goods for free."
Oh, that's
So
great. I
we
love
tried.
that. So when it's funny you bring that up about college housing, because my senior year we were off campus, but we were like, I mean, we were right next to campus. Like I was closer to like the gym my senior year than I was my junior year, but I was on campus
Okay,
my junior. So like we were really close to the
close.
grounds. Yeah, but there was obviously like other, not just college, uh like people living in those houses kind of around us. And so one day in the summer, actually, it was after we had graduated, I think. And these kids came around with cookies, and their mom was walking around.
Mhm.
Oh, we're saying hi to the neighbors or whatnot. And so I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
that's so awesome. So we got to talk to them for a little bit. And we're like, we're gonna be moving out in like a month or whatever. But it was
Yeah.
still just like it's a nice gesture, I think.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome that you guys had I think it's easier too when you have friends that are like, dude, what if we did this? And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah,
Let's
like
do
let's,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Uh,
there's the community. It's community inception, right? You have your housemate community that can encourage you to branch out into your neighborhood community or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
They're
mean,
feeding to each other.
even one of my roommates senior year of college, shout out Nate Urban, he had this idea because we were always coming up with these funny bits and stuff. And
Yeah.
we had this event on campus, and it was a musical centered event, but there were you needed like a host or whatever between the different acts and stuff. And it was
Hmm.
like probably the biggest event on our campus. It was called Encore at Anderson University. And
Okay.
so he was just like, hey, like, Logan, you've got this bit. I've got this bit.
Hmm.
And we brought in another friend too, one of our good friends, Ethan. And he's like, and I know you could think of something too. Like, why don't we just try this? And
Hmm.
so we did. And it was the most fun. It seemed daunting because you're like,
Hmm.
basically the whole school goes to this event.
Yeah.
And, we're seniors, we're busy. We have, got
Yeah.
to look for jobs and stuff because it was at the end of the year. And
Okay.
we ended up doing it. It was so much fun. We got the laughs. It was
Yeah.
like, it just felt like really good. And I'm like, I would have never done that on my own. That was like someone else bringing something
Yeah.
out of me, that I didn't think I could do or would want to do.
Yeah.
Because like really the other 3 years leading up to that, me and my friends are always doing funny bits and stuff,
Yeah.
and we're always, oh, we should host this, encore, this show, and never followed through. But this one friend was like, guys, no, like I'm reaching out to whoever the person was. And I'm like, oh,
Okay.
it's real now. Can we
Wait,
do
so you
this? I'm
guys
like, yeah.
hosted it? I'm sorry, I might have missed that. You guys were like
Yeah.
MCs for it?
Yeah, we were
Oh,
we were the
that's awesome.
MCs. Yeah. Yeah. So
Nice.
there were like different sets. So it'd be like 4 songs, and then they would need
Okay.
us to come on, give them a little break or whatever. And
Yeah.
so we did these
That's
funny like
amazing.
sketches. And
Yeah.
the other thing too was we had noticed there were some redundancies and
Uh-huh.
the way it was kind of done. The hosts would do something either way too specific or way too
Yeah.
generic about the campus.
Okay.
And so like their specific thing might be like a specific episode of Friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't see Friends, so I don't
Yeah.
understand the reference.
Yeah.
But then the general one would be, oh, the campus food stinks. Wah,
Yeah.
wah. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that might be true, I guess. But ours was like, it was niche, but it was also like a general audience could relate because it was funny. It was like there was
Mhm.
like we could find so like I had sorry, I'm going way into detail on this,
Do
but
it. No,
this is
tell us
one of
about the
my
bit.
this is one of my favorite like memories. So I'm gonna divulge a little bit
I'll
here.
share one after because I have not somewhat similar. So go. You share yours
Oh,
first,
please.
then I'll
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
it.
Let's trade some stories here. But yeah, so like so we had 3 people. So one person would kind of lead each set or whatever you want to call it. And so the
Uh-huh.
first one was my friend Nate. And I actually wasn't on stage for this one. And they were like Australian wildlife something. So like they
There
had
you
music going in the background, like
go. Uh-huh.
animal noises, and they're like creeping around the states. They're looking for the
Yeah.
Junja bar. Was this name he
Okay.
made up? And maybe I shouldn't have said it. I don't know. That's his idea. And I'm giving him all the credit. But there was this
You're
like
fine.
fictitious animal that they're like looking for. And
Uh-huh.
it's scary and it's small and it's got these teeth and whatever. And then like they radio call me in. So like I had a video pre-recorded on the screen, but they act like they were talking with me. And and so they're like, Logan, have you seen this? I go, no, but like I'm telling them about the wildlife
Uh-huh.
that I'm seeing. And then there are these things called gators. They're like ATV
Uh-huh.
cars, but like the workers like at AU, like some of the custodial staff or food staff or whatever, like they would drive them around to haul
Mhm.
stuff between places. So we got one of the nicer guys that we knew. We're like, hey, could you like come do this video with us? He's like, sure.
Yeah.
And so I'm explaining to them about these gators that I've been hunting and tracking. And then the guy comes up on the gator and like runs me over and whatever. and the
Nice.
feed cuts out, you know. And we
Yeah.
had this one joke, which was our good friend, mutual friend Nathan Hayes. All he does was he walks through the shot and goes, "Sup, man." That's all he says, and he
That's
keeps
it.
going. But it was so relatable because everybody on the campus had experienced that. Him just come because he would say hi to everybody. So he
Everyone.
just came up to me as I'm doing this thing and goes, "Sup, man," and just keeps walking and go,
Keeps going.
hello there, you know, whatever. And then so they're laughing so hard
Yeah.
that the guy was supposed to ask me a question and he can't even ask the question because they're laughing for so long. And then
Uh-huh.
I just start talking again, you know, like answering his
Yeah.
question. But no one
Right.
noticed because it was such a big
Yeah.
laugh and we weren't planning that or anything. It was just like, because I like this idea of subtlety. So it's like the thing you
Yeah.
see every day, but you don't know is funny until it's like,
Right.
oh,
Until it's
that's
called
yeah,
out.
like
Yeah.
that happens to me all the time. And you know, as opposed to the other thing being like the food sucks, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, everybody that's like kind of aware of that. It's not
Yeah.
subtle, but just the same person that you see every day that
Right.
you see on the screen, you're like, oh, that's super funny because it was serious. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
well, obviously it was we were doing it to be comedic, but everyone else, that's a serious moment that they're just like, oh, hey, you
Mhm.
know, and but they're like, oh, yeah. So I don't know. There's just stuff like that. And then, so sorry, I spent a lot of time talking about that one. They end up, my one friend can play saxophone, Ethan. He can play
Okay.
saxophone. So he ends up playing the song to lull, to put the junior bar to sleep or whatever. And then they sneak off stage and they whisper, they announce the next people that are going. But even though they're whispering it and people are giggling and laughing, it was just such like a full moment. There's like
Yeah.
almost no sound except this little,
Yeah.
it was a soprano sax, or it was like a very small
Okay.
saxophone, and then him whispering, and it was so funny. And then the next one was me, and I had this movie trailer voice that I did, and
Okay.
I acted like I made a movie,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, you know, I've been working all year on this. I've been working really hard. If it's okay with you guys, I'd love to show you a clip. One of our
Uh-huh.
friends who works on like the tech for the chapel comes up and he's whispering in my ear, and I'm just nodding. And I'm like, oh, you know, like looking really
Mhm.
disappointed. And you hear these murmurs in the crowd, and they're like,
Yeah.
what's going on, kind of thing. And then I go, well, guys, apparently the sound's not working for the video, which I knew full well it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I go, but if it's all right with you guys, like I worked really hard in this. I still want to show up, but I'm gonna have my two co-hosts come out and we're going to voice over the different characters. And then it's just a bunch of random clips I put together of some of it we filmed, but like so we would film it and then so it was Nate and Ethan are the two guys.
Uh-huh.
Ethan would voice Nate's parts and Nate would voice Ethan's parts. And it was so
Amazing.
funny. Like people probably didn't even notice that, but like
Yeah.
it's literally them just like, we have to find a way to stop him. Here's an idea. And then like they like jump over. We called it the one step in our or the one stair in our house. We had like one step that led to like a lower level, but it wasn't
Uh-huh.
like a downstairs, like it was just like a one step. And so they
Yeah.
jump off this one step, and
Uh-huh.
I get these different angles of them jumping, and then cars exploding, you know, it's the next scene.
Yeah.
And then they land and they look back, and then they knuckle bump, and that's the end of the trailer, you know. But sounds like obviously not, you know, I don't know. That one got a ton of laughs.
Did they improv those lines like up
Um,
on stage, or did you guys like
that was the
practice?
tricky thing. We
Yeah.
had because some of it was like I recorded them,
Hmm.
and so they needed to nail those lines. So there were a couple
Yeah.
lines, but most of it was ad-libbing. Like we had
Okay.
a scene from Harry Potter with Harry and Dumbledore or Voldemort holding each other, and I forget like I forget what we were definitely not voicing over what they were saying, but we are making up something funny because it's such
Uh-huh.
a dramatic scene. But then it was like we made it goofy, and
Yeah.
can't remember. There's some. We used We used clips from another video like my sister had made like the
Hmm.
year before, and it's just like me crawling on the ground in this like stupid outfit and like calling out for Luke, my brother. But
Hmm.
we had voiced over it like help me, you know, or what,
Hmm.
like whatever,
Hmm.
something different. And yeah, it was so I guess there was a bit of a script now that I think about it. I don't think every line was scripted, but there were definitely lines they needed to hit. I don't think I
Yeah.
had many speaking parts, but I did the dum 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 dum, you know, like background,
The
like
background.
sound effects, you know, for the
Okay, so you were sound effects. You
Oh,
were the
and
score.
sorry, I was the narrator too. So if a scene changed, so
How
like
long was this? How long was
it
the?
was a minute maybe,
Okay.
like a minute, but it was super funny because then like I was like, shoot, what did I say? I said, um, oh, it was like the characters have to learn to deal with first world problems, and
Yeah.
just like them just standing in a kitchen, like, whatever, like figuring out what to do. But yeah, so that was like super fun. And then I'm sorry, I'm going way in detail on this. And then the third one was the most probably absurd one. And I love, but it was two guys, the two, Ethan and Nate, were
Mhm.
sitting playing checkers. They were playing checkers. And then
Okay.
I'm like the mischievous younger brother, like coming in. I wasn't actually their brother, but that was the kind of type I'm thinking of. I came on rollerblades and they're like, I forget what my name was, but they're like, so and so. And I look at the
Yeah.
audience, I just give one of the, I didn't have a microphone. So I'm just like, and then there's like the audience is dying, laughing, clapping. And then I go off stage, they're doing their thing, talking. And just kind of like random. They're talking random, absurd. Like Dakota would have loved this sketch. Our friend
Uh,
Dakota Moon, I think, would have loved this sketch. And then next thing you know, they go, I'm just playing checkers with my cousin Jimmy or something, whatever it was. And I'm on the
mhm.
drum set and I start playing drums. And I'm like, all that kind of stuff. And then they're like, whatever my name was, they're like, so and so. And then I just
Uh-huh.
like on the drum, and then I run away and they're like laughing again. And so that one was really fun too. And then the last one, it was called The Chord.
The
And
chord.
we got the whole band to, because we were friends, like we were musicians, we were friends with the
Hmm.
band and stuff.
Hmm.
And we're like, we're gonna be very annoying, but we want you guys to basically not take a break on the last set in
Hmm.
between, like
Yeah.
the whatever. We want you guys to stay out there. Or actually, I take that back. My friend Nate, he had a monologue, so they were off for like a minute or two, and then
Okay.
they came back on, and like my friend Nate is hyping this up, like you know, this is a song like I wrote when I was a child with my brothers. It means so much to me, like all this stuff. And then we all hit. I was on the banjo. He was on guitar, I think. The other friend Ethan was playing cajon or some kind of percussive
Okay.
instrument. And then so like the drummer counts and says 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, just one
Yeah.
chord. We all just hit one note. And then we
Yeah.
look at each other and we nod our heads like, wow, that was incredible. And the
Yeah.
audience does a standing applause. And then we're walking off and the band is coming up to us and they're like, guys, that was awesome. That was,
Yeah.
whatever. And we're like, we crushed that. Like it
Yeah.
was just so fun and funny.
That's
And,
awesome.
but anyhow, I went way too long on that. I would love to hear your college
The
story as well.
singular chord.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, if you hit it, that's all it takes. You resonate with people, huh? I guess that's
Yeah.
all.
Just
It
one
was the
note.
it was the curtain call. Like you probably built up to that, right? You did a few good bits in a row, and then like it's just the ending.
Yeah.
If and
Yeah.
then you end and they remember it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That would have been so fun. I wish it's like because that reminds me of stuff, even stuff from high school that we did, like some of the
Oh,
videos
yeah.
that we shot in high school, and like I those are some of my favorite memories too of both high school and college. I didn't. My story is not as much like a scripted bit, but we had like talent shows. So Crew was the Christian organization I was in college, and so like it's part of it for me is just not is enjoying being goofy in front of people. Like that's my thing. And so like for one of them, I played the recorder. I played Darude Sandstorm on the recorder, and it was super fun. Yeah.
Is there a video of this anywhere, Phil?
I don't know if there's video of it. There's video of me playing so that just became like a thing that I did. Like that became my bit was like playing the recorder. So like I did it once on for a talent show, and I had two, but I couldn't do I couldn't do both fingerings at the same time. So I had to have my buddy Scott, who was my housemate, come and like do just one hand. Like I was holding one in each hand, and he had to do like the second hand of one of them. And it
Oh
didn't work at
gosh.
all. Like I played it with one hand and I tried to make it cool, like spin it out with my other hand, like get a second recorder going. And then it didn't work. It like completely fell flat. But it was so funny. That was so funny. And then
Oh
so it
gosh.
became a thing after that. And I was like, I wonder, because you see, you know, obviously, okay, so Miami is a college town, right? Oxford's a college town, and you see, I mean, any type of town where there's nightlife, people are busking, right? Like people are
Yeah.
playing on the
Yeah.
street, making like so that happens at Miami sometimes. I was like, I wonder if I stood outside of a bar and it was late enough and people were drunk enough, if I could make any money playing the recorder. And so it took me a little while. I only did this a couple times, and I can only work up the courage to stay out there for like 15 minutes playing the recorder. I also didn't have that much material because I'm not actually talented, but it was so funny, and I
Oh,
did make like $7 from drunk college students,
whoa.
like
They're probably like,
just
this
the
guy needs it more than any other person I've
yeah.
seen, but he has got the recorder out. He needs
I've got the
this.
recorder, yeah, and like just like a ball cap on the ground. So
Oh my
I did
gosh,
that.
that is a great bit. That is a great
Yeah.
bit.
So that was one thing that I did. I'm trying to think. And that's actually when I started dating Sydney, my now wife.
Well,
That's
I
like
mean,
one of the
how could she not be impressed by that? You know, it's
how
like
could she not?
the recorder guy.
That's literally how she knew me, like partially, is because which is such a weird thing. Like that's how like the one of the first funny or like quirky things that she and her family knew about me was that like I had made money outside of a bar playing the recorder.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
Uh,
and I still have them, and now Andrew plays them.
that's awesome. Oh my
My
gosh.
son, yeah. So that's one, but then the other one that I really this was maybe my single favorite. The recorder bit was funny because it was like it happened over the course of like 3 semesters or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But my favorite single like goofy funny thing that I did in college probably was we had an open mic night at like there's a coffee shop called Cafeña, if you are familiar with anybody who's listening who's familiar with Miami. Um, we had an open mic night, and I decided that I was gonna get, instead of just it being me, get like a bunch of people to do a scene, to do a and
Yeah.
so for some reason I was really into listening to Les Mis. And so I was like, oh, we should do One Day More. Like I should get all the characters and get everybody to sing that song. And so literally I threw this together like a week before, but I ended up being just like the guy who put it all together because I can't really sing that well. But I like I was friends with people who were either in the worship band or whatever who could sing really well. And so like I ended up finding the right person for every role for Jean Valjean and Javert and like all the different roles and because there's I don't know how many there are. The song's only like 3 or 4 minutes long, but there's like 7 or 8 different characters that end up singing. And ended up being the coolest thing ever. Like I brought an American flag. I feel at the end of that song, it's like it gets really intense and like it builds to this ending where they're like it's about to be the French Revolution, right? And so like by the very end they had everybody was singing all together and I had the American flag like waving it off the couch.
Do people know
Uh
what to do? Like the audience, are they
no.
laughing or are they just like, that's so great?
Well, I think people actually ended up getting into it somewhat. Like people
Yeah,
like they're like people were good enough at singing. You know, I had enough people who actually could sing
yeah.
that I think people actually got into it because I was into it because I thought it was hilarious.
Because you're
Uh,
like the director at this point, right? It seems
Pretty much,
like
yeah, pretty
casting and
much,
yeah.
yeah. So that was probably the single most fun because it got everybody who was doing it got really into it, and then we have because everybody who was singing got into the performance, and it was still goofy, right? It was just it was an open mic night in a coffee shop, but then there was a decent amount of people there, probably like 30 or 40 people sitting in the coffee shop watching,
That's pretty
and
good
then
for no. I've done quite a few open mic nights. So that's a pretty good
yeah.
crowd. Yeah, 30 or 40
Um,
people.
so yeah, that was the other story of being either goofy or unafraid to just
Yeah.
to have like it's kind of a creative outlet, right? It was fun. It was fun.
And I think I respect that so much in you that you went up and did that and multiple times with the recorder, but then also like organizing that whole, because like people are willing to do fun and creative things, but they just need
Yeah,
that voice. They need that person to say, I have the idea. Like, here's what I'm seeing. Let's do this. That's gonna be great.
yeah,
And then it's like, yeah, obvious, yeah, let's do it.
right,
You know,
right.
and that's I think not to get too reminiscent here into the high school days, but
No,
I do think that
I was gonna call back that out too. So go ahead. You probably gonna say
okay,
something similar
okay.
where I
Yeah,
was.
so I'll bring it up and then I'd love to get your thoughts too. But I just think our group did that so well. It was always about the
Yeah,
laugh, always about the
yeah,
bit. Didn't take ourselves very seriously. But yeah, it was like it was always like, just finding the joy in life, I think, is
hmm
the like excuse me. We're talking about aim earlier. Like, I think
yeah,
that's the aim, is like
sure.
I'm living life to the full. But then what does
hmm
that entail? It's like that stuff. It's
Yeah,
I want to make my friends laugh. And
yeah,
I don't care how I look or how other people perceive me, but like I love them. I know they love me. Like,
yeah,
let's just have a good time with it all. You know what I mean? So
right.
I'd love to turn it over to you though as well on this.
No, all I was gonna say was basically the same thing, that like that seed in me was definitely planted in our friend group in high school, of like we had air band, or we had like the jimmies or whatever, and like just
And
seeing.
maybe you should explain that to the listener,
Yeah, yeah, I
Phil.
should.
Yeah.
So air band, man, how do I explain air band? What even was air band? Air band is, I guess, what it sounded like. You just would play a song. They would play a song at chapel, and then they would have each grade, right? It was by grade, right? Each grade would have like a choreographed performance to this song. And I think the best one was when Dakota put it together. It was you and Dakota, I think. Was that I don't remember if it was sophomore or junior year, but the one where it was but anyway, okay, let me finish explaining before we try to tell the story, if we even want to tell the story. I don't know. But
Yeah.
basically they would do this choreographed dance, right? At each grade, and then there was a set of character judges. Like and so we had this teacher, Mr. Johnson, who was always Randy, what's his last name? Like an American Idol judge.
Oh yeah, I'm blanking on.
Uh,
I want to say Randy Johnson, but I'm like, that's probably not right. Randy, well,
um, anyway, they all
yeah.
pretended to be American Idol judges. He had so it was just this weird like thing that everybody would get into character and pretend that we were doing a real performance, and then judge, and there would end up being a winner, right? I don't know if I'm missing anything, Logan.
No, I think that's it. But the one I think you're talking about was
Yeah.
the junior and senior. We were juniors, but we collaborated with the seniors, and it was
Okay.
Dakota and Mitchell, the Moon
Yes,
Brothers,
you're right. You're
and
right. You're right.
and yeah, I had like one of those. Oh, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like a flag, not a flag, but it's like a long string, and you're doing all the like that
Oh
stuff with
yeah.
it. And it was me and the senior, Josh Mann. And so he grabbed, or he might have grabbed it from me, or I grabbed it from him, but we're like having a whatever that
Yes.
is off, dance off with that thing. And then like Dakota, I think, comes between us, is like, enough fighting. And then we
Yeah.
like we do a song that's like whatever. And like we get people coming out in choir robes, lip singing, it was so funny.
Wasn't it for like the song from Hot Rod that they came out to? See, now this is bad. We're
Yes.
not.
Yes, it was. It was that song at the
We're
end of Hot Rod before
yeah.
the chaos
Yeah, the voice.
ensues.
That one.
Before they start rioting and
Yeah,
looting.
before they
Yeah,
start.
and Hot Rod. Great scene. Such a
That was
funny
a great
scene.
scene.
But yeah, so that was Airband was great. And then sorry, what was the other? There was another one you had mentioned too.
The Jimmies.
The Jimmies, yes.
Yeah, which is that one was awards, right? It was like superlatives, right? And
Superlatives, yeah.
but it
For
wasn't.
based on the year. So like it would
Yeah,
be based on we went to a Christian high school, so it'd be based on like the chapels, what was kind of like memorable from
yeah,
different series that we had done or specific chapels that we had. So Yeah.
But that one was like an award show, probably like that maybe a planted this because they would you guys would do I never did those, but you guys would do bits in between the awards, like making fun of things in the school or like teachers and stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah, we did
So
I remember one year we did commercials, like we made because there were some like set things that needed to move around. And
oh
so
yeah,
we would make videos and there was we were so big into SNL at that point. We wanted them to be like digital shorts and
okay.
but they were commercials. And so it'd be like Gatorade, Hunger Games themed or something like
Mhm.
that. And that was a serious one, I think, or like as serious as you can get. And then, but then we did Doritos commercial, and my at the time he was maybe like a 10-year-old neighbor. He's all of like 4 feet tall against our friend Jordan Harris, who's all of 6'2", 6 feet 2 inches tall. And Jordan sees a bag of Doritos up on the basketball hoop. Oh, he goes and gets the ladder to climb up and get them. The
Mhm.
10-year-old 4 foot tall kid said, "Oh, Doritos!" Jumps, gets the Doritos, lands. Jordan comes out with the ladder, sees him. Oh, and so we
Uh-huh.
were like, we thought we could have submitted that to like the company Doritos, and they like because it was
Yeah,
such a good idea. Obviously, they would reshoot it and stuff, but like
sure.
we're like the concept is there. It's
That was
such
for
a
sure.
funny concept. And this
Yeah,
kid, his name was Mikey, our neighbor. He had like $1 million smile. He had the best smile
yeah.
too. So we just like it's Jordan's face like surprise what, and then Mikey's just like big cheesy smile.
With the
It was
Doritos.
awesome. It was so good. Yeah. And then we did like a Christian Mingle commercial. That was more of a kind of like but now everyone meets online. And we weren't even
Yeah.
trying to say anything about like you shouldn't or can't, because we did have
Mhm.
someone come up that was offended by that one afterwards. And I was like, we were not like trying to
Yeah.
make fun of people that use this. We were just like, it is kind of like a funny, it was foreign, like the online internet dating was kind of foreign
It
to
was
us at the time.
foreign to us in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was more so that it was just like, but yeah, we weren't trying to offend people that like used it and it worked for them or whatever,
Hmm.
obviously. But sometimes that's the risk of a joke, is like you think it's funny, someone finds it offensive. But that was
Right.
just one person. And oh, what was the other? Oh, wait, a Coca-Cola commercial too. That was, I thought, pretty slick. Uh it was kind of funny, but mostly slick. It's like Jordan Marsman is leaning against the building, like looking cool, cracks we didn't even we just recorded it with the camera. We didn't do a
Yeah.
separate sound effect or anything, but it made the best cracking sound, when he opened the
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And then we started a song played right as he cracked it. And he's walking down the street like a cool guy. He's pointing
Yeah.
to his friends. He's doing all that kind of thing. And then he
Uh-huh.
gets to the end of the street, and there I am doing the same pose he was, just like against the wall, just like, man, tough day. And then he
Uh-huh.
pulls out of his pocket a Coke, flips it and like in his hand, catches it, and then throws it behind the back to me, lands perfectly in my hands. And then I'm just kind of like, And then I go to crack it and it ends. And I was like,
Nice.
oh, that, even just talking to you about it now, I'm like, these are such great ideas.
It hypes you up. Yeah.
I know, I'm like, Coca-Cola doesn't deserve this. They're gonna hear this podcast, obviously, and then just
Obviously,
rip us
everybody's gonna
off.
hear
But
hear
yeah, but
our beautiful detailed storytelling about.
that's like, I'm like, if I could do that as a job, I would in a heartbeat. Just like
Yeah.
you're goofing off with your friends, but you're also like creating a lot of like really cool and maybe you could argue like meaningful memories, experiences, and
Hmm.
like they would have been great ad campaigns, in my
It's
opinion.
true.
But I have some
Well,
bias there, obviously.
it's interesting because my part of what I do for work is so the market research side of what I do for work. One of the things that actually over the past couple of years that I've learned a lot about and gained some expertise in is ad testing. So companies that will test their ads with their target audience or consumer before they launch them to try to see, is this going to be worth the spend? Like, is it going to be resonate with them? Is it going to
Yeah.
drive them to go? If it's a Coca-Cola ad, is it going to drive them to go buy Coke? Right. Um, and one of the things that we've learned is that the some of the most compelling commercials out there and advertising out there is it occurs when you highlight the human connection that happens because of, so like your commercial with the Coke where obviously where Jordan is um opens it and he's happy, like if you show the emotion on his face, and then the end, the whole like, climax of the commercial is having that moment of connection where he gives you one and he turns
Yeah.
your day around. Like there's a whole methodology, testing methodology, that what it does is it looks at how the ad makes people feel, and so there's a whole way that they do it, but like it traces how the storyline for how it makes them feel. It's like you have a whole storyline in that
Yeah.
concept of like happy and then sad and then it peaks again at happy at the end, right? Because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, Jordan's happy, and then you're like having a bad day, and then but then there's the connection, and it what that does, it does a lot of different things. But anyway, just nerding out about it, it's a good idea, I think. And there's a lot of reasons why it's a good idea, and obviously could be optimized, but it's the human connection and it's the emotional storytelling that ends up making ads really good. And obviously you have to connect your brand in there as well, because you have to like, but it's already part of the story, right? So
Right.
it's anyway. I think you may have some talent there. You may want to think about
But that's
shifting
where
potentially.
I feel like we could be a good team. I mean, not that we're starting a business right now, but
Maybe we should.
yeah, I would love that. You have the market like research analysis. I do
Yeah.
like, and then I love the freedom to just. Also, I
Mhm.
have some analysis experience. Like I'm an accountant and stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but like we can look at data and like know what it's saying. But then
Hmm.
I think both you and I also have that storytelling aspect that's like
Yeah.
makes us feel alive and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think like because the other thing is like I like doing that stuff. It gets me out of my desk. And
Hmm. Hmm.
even when you guys would come over to do these videos, we very seldom were like sitting around and being like, okay, this is a script. Does everybody agree? It was like,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
just go
yeah.
out and like Dan would be like, okay, we do this in the first scene. Okay, we
Mhm.
film that. Where are we going from here? Well, I could walk down here and do this. Okay, let's do that next. And
Yeah.
then you know what'd be really funny is, and then like we're doing the storytelling in like real time and like
Hmm.
kind of tweaking. It reminds me of the way like a Curb Your Enthusiasm might be filmed or something, where it's like
Oh yeah.
because I actually I don't know if you know this, but I've been not like actively helping, but when my company needs someone to be in like promotional marketing videos,
Oh
I'm always like,
nice.
please let me know because I love doing
Yeah.
that stuff. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really interesting to see professionals like do it because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
process is different. They have a script and they,
Right.
you know, and obviously we tweak stuff because I don't memorize lines or like talk very
Hmm.
well. And so they're like, well, we'll cut this out. And so they're adaptive, obviously, to
Hmm.
like whoever they're working with. But it's like they have a plan. They have like because they'll schedule like 30 minutes. So it's like we have to get
Hmm.
it done in it. Whereas
Yeah.
when we were doing it, we're just kind of hanging out and also
Mhm.
doing it. So that's
Yeah.
the other thing. The weird thing is like the efficiency and effectiveness, like
Yeah.
bringing that into that process. Which is also tough for me because I'm like, I want to just live where I can be creative and not be touched by those things in some sense.
Yeah.
But in the other sense, it's like we live in a real world and there are
Hmm.
time deadlines and restrictions and whatnot. But I say all that to say it's, you know, that light or that passion is still in me. I just
Yeah.
would love to find a way to
I
use
could
it.
totally see you being a part of a creative agency somehow. Like, well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like you do have that spark in you, and but it is hard. The working relationship, and I don't have to bridge this gap very often in my role, but the working relationship between the creative agencies, the ad agencies who do the creative work, versus the business and like or the marketing, either the marketing agency that then deploys the creative, or there's different ways that it can be set up, is often kind of tense because you have the creative types who want to be the people who are the creative types. They don't want to be told what to do, right? Because they're like,
Yeah.
or they don't want to be nitpicked in how they do their thing. But then you have the analytical types, like which is more my role, which is like not very good, like try again type of a thing. Where and then you have the client who's the business looking over your shoulder, like, are you going to give us something that works or not? Right? Are
Yeah.
you going to give us something effective? And so it's a very interesting relationship where it's hard to strike the right dynamic there, because at the end of the day, the whole reason that you're, at least if you're an ad agency, that you're able to do the creative work is so that it serves the client or serves the business, right? Which is I'm sure that there's a lot of creatives out there that don't like that and wish that they maybe they're doing that to pay the bills, but then they have probably their own side creative projects that they do where they don't have to be hemmed in, right? Anyway, it's
Yeah.
just a very interesting dynamic that you see.
No, I think it's really
Uh,
helpful to hear because like you were saying, you work in this or like kind of adjacent to it with the
yeah.
market research. So it's helpful to hear that whole dynamic because I
Hmm.
think one of the things I'm not saying we will partner up, but if we did partner up, was we have the analytical experience and like I have
Yeah.
business experience, so I know what they're
Yeah.
expecting. Like
Right.
I know what,
Exactly.
but the other thing is in order to be effective at the creative process, you do have to turn that off. Like, I'm not going to listen to you right now, and I'm just going to let my mind
Hmm.
wander. And like, you
Sure.
need to be able to do that. And yeah, so I think about this a lot without actually occupying the space or the job necessarily, but
Hmm.
my mind, I just wonder about that stuff. And because the other thing too is when you're in high school, you think, oh, well, this is just funny to our friend group or like
Yeah.
a small pocket of people. But
Right.
then
Right.
now that I'm older, I'm like, no, wait, those ideas were like good. Like they've stood
Yeah.
the test of time. I still think
Right.
they're good and funny.
Yeah.
Could they have been improved or the video quality, all that?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But like the concept, like the idea
Yeah.
is there. And I'm an ideas
Hmm.
person anyhow. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be very good at, you know, the filming and the
Yeah.
all some of that kind of stuff. But I love the idea. I would be in it if I needed to be, but I prefer actually not to really be in it. I just like to
Hmm.
make it.
Well, have you seen any of the Dr. Pepper commercials recently? So, like, because I do this in market research, I also enjoy commercials. Like, I get sucked into this, like a good
Yeah.
commercial because I understand somewhat. I've never done it. I'm not a creative, so I don't have that skill set, but I understand enough about how difficult it is to make a good ad. And like, if somebody can weave good storytelling into it and make it compelling, it gets me. So, have you seen any of the newer Dr. Pepper ads that are they're somewhat similar to your whole Coke concept, where it's like but it's two different types of people. One of them's like a is like a nerd or it's like a studious person, and then it's like either like somebody who's goth or a rocker, and they end up joining forces over a can of Dr. Pepper or something like that. Have you seen that?
No, that sounds awesome
But
though.
but it's like the human connection idea. It's like people who you wouldn't expect to come together end up either making a band or they go skating together or something. It's like I think one of them is like an older accountant looking guy with a bunch of teenagers, and then he's riding his scooter and they're riding their skateboards, and they both open a can of Dr. Pepper and look at each other, and then end up like going skating together and stuff. So
Yeah.
like anyway, it's like that's anyway, the human connection idea is still there and it's simple but compelling. And Dr. Pepper is spending lots of money on that type of advertising. But anyway,
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, yeah,
you
it's
should look
proof.
it up.
I will. Yeah, it's proof of concept. I think one
Yeah.
of the unfortunate things, I don't even know if I'd call it unfortunate, but one of the changes in like we basically only watch streaming now is
Yeah.
that outside of the Olympics, been watching that a little bit, but
Mhm.
there aren't any commercials really.
Yeah.
And like I hate listening to them on podcasts, so I'll skip
Yeah.
through them every time. But
Yeah.
I do when I was growing up, I would watch the commercials and like
Yeah.
make fun of them, they're too
Yeah.
serious,
Yeah.
or if they're really funny, I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Like there was
Yeah.
online dating site called Zoosk or Zooms or
I don't.
it was a UK site, I think. But this guy is he's on a first date with a girl and she likes playing darts. So he throws a
Mhm.
dart, hits another
Oh
guy.
yeah.
Oh,
I remember.
boom. He hits his head
Yeah.
on the table and falls down. That was to this day, I will never forget that commercial. One of the funniest
Yeah.
commercials I've ever seen. And like I know it's for an online dating. I can remember the name. I think it might be
Yeah.
out of business now.
Yeah.
Like it's not one of the popular dating sites, um but yeah, so like, there are some of those that are impressionable, or there's some that are
Mhm.
like annoying. So pharmaceutical commercials,
Yes.
like those are terrible. Like they need to
Yeah.
stop making those. I get they kind of have to put all the information out there and package it that way. People just side
Yeah.
effect might be death.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough thing.
Yeah, that would be a tough one because it's like they have to be very happy. as like
Mhm.
diarrhea may occur for the
Yeah.
next 74 hours, or whatever it is. But it's like they're like,
How do you make a story out of that?
yeah,
That's
I know.
because you
It
have
is.
to because you have to legally you have to say all that stuff, right? And
And you
so
offset it with the high emotion because it's
yeah.
TV is such a great emotional device or
Yep. Yep.
storyteller, whatever you want to call it. So very high in the pathos, and so
hmm
you're seeing like these. They're just having so much fun.
Yeah.
Could include bleeding out of your ears for the next 4 days, and they're just like at the dinner table,
At the
just having a
beach.
good old time. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're at the beach, like laying out on their towel. Yeah, it's like
This might be my last day on earth.
yeah, but I'm gonna spend it smiling.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
but
that's it. That was so interesting too because how do you people who well, not this isn't true for all pharmaceuticals, but there's a lot of cases where somebody's dealing with a serious disease, right? And they have considered the side effects and they still think it's worth it, right?
yeah,
To get relief from whatever the disease is, whatever the symptoms of the disease are. So, obviously sometimes it can be there's two sides to the coin. One side is it can seem deceptive if you show all these happy people with all these side effects. But the other side of the coin is there is a certain, depending on the disease, there's a certain portion of the population who, even if they knew all the facts, would still choose the medication or to take the medication despite the risk of the side effects because of how much the disease impacts their quality of life, right? So like
yeah.
how do you bridge that gap too? It's a very it's tricky to try to be to do marketing for pharmaceuticals. It's a weird thing to try to do.
It is. It is. Um, yeah, I would love to see one of them deviate from that
Yeah,
model, and they probably haven't failed, and that's what they're like. We won't do it, but
yeah,
yeah, because like I get you could even. I mean, it's tough because you're telling a short story too. Basically,
yeah,
it's like guy was sad, struggling with liver pain or whatever, and
yeah.
then he tried Liquivix and Liquivix,
Liquivic.
whatever, and he's like,
That was good.
now I'm happy. It does sound like
Uh,
that because they have a lot of V's and X's and
yeah.
Q's, or not maybe not Q's, but V's, X, Z, like that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I don't know. I think I don't know. I think maybe I'd like to come back to this conversation as the
Yeah.
like I think this could be an interesting. I don't know how you even go about starting that sort of because like yeah. Anyhow, I'm gonna leave it there. I think we could talk about it more another time.
Yeah. Sure.
But anyhow, the way I think this conversation ties back in with what we've been talking about kind of throughout, and especially at the beginning, I took us down a rabbit trail, but I'm kind of liking where we ended up. I hope the audience did too. Um, but it's about, I think of the song, you'll know this about me. I'm a huge Mumford and Sons fan. It reminds me of
Uh-huh.
the song "The Lover of the Light," which is
Uh-huh.
it's pursuing that aim. It's not that you'll achieve the ideal. It's like the people and the ideas that just like make you tingle and give you goosebumps. It's like chasing that feeling in my mind.
Sure.
And I think when I listen to that song, also I don't know why I'm going down this rabbit trail now, but I am. When I listen to
Follow
that
it.
song, it's like I can feel there's this thing about like that warmth or that light throughout the past, present, and future that I just feel like they
hmm
align, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm like out of this moment, and I'm like, or maybe I'm really in the moment. I don't know I don't even know how to explain really how I feel with that, but when I listen to that song, but it is like you know, life is tough, but I will pursue the light. I'll pursue the laughter and the
hmm
love and the higher aim. I'm going to
hmm
cultivate this blue zone in my day-to-day life, and I'm gonna even if I can't do this as a job or profession, which maybe that's the best thing for me too. I don't know. There's a lot of unknown, but it's like that's kind of where I aim at is I have this creativity I need to express.
Yeah.
I feel the most meaningful and most fulfilled when I'm doing that, either writing or, hopefully laughing and discussing it with people like we've been doing on this call. But
hmm
even just hearing your record a bit, I'm like, so funny, so good. Wish I could have been a fly on the wall or like
I
been in the
know.
room. Like that would have been, oh my gosh, I would have been, I would have been in stitches just laughing. But
It was fun.
Yeah.
The whole idea of the light thing too, because I resonate with that because Jordan Peterson talks about this. I think he's not the only one, but the golden thread of truth through history, talking about, so like that's more on a conceptual level, that there's this golden thread despite, you know, the horrors that are happening and the wars that have happened or the atrocities, that there's this golden story or thread of truth that goes through all of history and people pick up on it, like certain thinkers or philosophers or religious figures will pick up on what this golden thread of truth and add to it or follow it
Hmm.
despite the tragedies of their time, right? And the horrors of their time. And like that idea has resonated with me too on more of a conceptual level, but I think it holds true on a creative level too. Like you're taking the golden thread of the narrative that's woven through history, and you want to use that as your creative impetus or whatever to try to add to it and follow it and so yeah, I think it's a very idealistic, but I like the aim. It's a cool thing to try to aim for, is to be part of those people that don't get distracted or get bogged down by all of the darkness, right? But you find a way to attach yourself to the truth or the goodness that exists in every part of history, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said, my friend. Well, I would like to end on that note because I think that
Do
is
it.
a both a truthful but also a well said poetic kind of point to leave on. So thank you so much, Phil, for coming on and for giving
Yeah.
me some of your time this morning. I feel very, energized or,
Me too.
ready to tackle the things of my day now, having spoken
Yeah.
with you. So I appreciate that very much.
Dad life coming. It's
Yeah.
coming soon.
Yep. A little bit of time left, and then it's off to the races. So thank you again, and yeah, we'll talk soon. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See ya.